Magic Treehouse, Book Number 13, Vacation Under the Volcano, by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 1, A Secret God. Jack reached into his drawer and took out his secret library card. He held a thin piece of wood and ran his fingers over the shimmering letter, M.L. Master Librarians, he whispered. Jack couldn't believe that he and his sister Annie were finally Master Librarians. He wondered if he should pack the secret card to take on vacations. His family was about to leave for a week in the mountains. Just then, Annie stuck her head into Jack's room. "Want to check the woods?" she asked. Every morning they looked in the Frog Creek woods to see if Morgan Le Fay and her magic treehouse had returned. "We can't," said Jack. "We're leaving soon." "But what if Morgan's there?" said Annie. "What if she's waiting for us?" "Okay," said Jack. "Let's look fast." He grabbed his backpack. He threw in his notebook, his pencil, and his secret library card. Then he followed Annie downstairs. "We'll be back soon," Annie called. "Don't go far," their dad called. "We're leaving in 20 minutes. Don't worry, we'll be back in 10, said Annie. "Right, Jack," thought Jack. 5 minutes to the woods and 5 minutes back. Even if Morgan sent them on an adventure, they would return at exactly the same time that they left. Jack and Annie ran onto the front door. In the bright morning sunshine, they hurried across their lawn and down the street. "I had a nightmare last night," said Annie. "What was that?" said Jack. "I dreamed fires were burning," said Annie. "Everything was smoky and dark. The ground was shaking. Do you think it was the warning?" "Nah," said Jack. "Nightmares never come true." They left the sidewalks and headed into the Frog Creek woods. The woods were quiet and peaceful. They walked between sunlit trees until they came to the tallest oak in the woods. "Yay!" said Annie. There it was, the magic treehouse, and Morgan Le Fay was waving from the window. "Hello, Master Librarian," she said. Jack and Annie bowed playfully. "At your service," said Annie. "Then come on up," said Morgan. They grabbed the rope ladder and started up. When they climbed inside the treehouse, they found Morgan holding the books and the piece of paper. "I have an important mission for you," he says. "Are you ready?" "Yes," they both answered. Jack's heart pounded. Ever since Morgan has made them Master Librarians, he has been longing for their first missions. "You know, I collect books for Camelot Library," she said. Jack and Annie nodded. "Well, there have been many great libraries lost in history," said Morgan, "and with them we have lost many wonderful stories." "That's sad," said Annie. "It is," said Morgan. "But luckily, with the help of Treehouse and you two Master Librarians, some of those stories can be saved, such as this one." Morgan shows them the piece of paper. There was a strange writing on it. Fortissimus in Mondo. "Is that a secret code?" said Jack. Morgan smiled. "In the way," she said. "Actually, it's the title of the last story. It's written in Latin, the legend of the ancient Romans of Italy." "Ancient Romans?" said Jack. He loved anything to do with ancient Romans. "Yes," said Morgan. "This story was in the library in the Roman town. I need you to get it before the library becomes lost forever." "No problem," said Annie. "Do you have your secret library card?" asked Morgan. "Yes," said Jack. "Good. Do not lose them. The right people will know what they mean, said Morgan. And as usual, here is the books to help you. Morgan handed Jack a book called Life in Roman Times. The cover shows a Roman town with people wearing tunics and sandals. That looked great, said Jack. And take this, the name of the story I need, said Morgan. She handed a piece of paper to Jack, and he put it in his pack. Remember, said Morgan, your research book will guide you. But remember, in your darkest hour, only the ancient story can save you. But first, you must find it. Jack and Danny nodded. Go now, Morgan said softly, and don't forget what I just told you. Thanks, said Jack. He pointed at the cover of the books on the Roman times. I wish we could go there, he says. The wind started to blow. I almost forgot. I'm going to help you blind in, Morgan shouted above the window, above the winds. What do you mean? Shouted Jack. Before Morgan could answer, the treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Oh, cool, whispered Annie. Look at us. Chapter 2. The end is near. Jack opened his eyes. He pushed his glasses into place. Morgan was gone, and so were Jack's jeans, t-shirt, sneakers, and backpack. Instead, he had on the white tunic with the belt, sandals that lens up, and the ladder's bags. He looked at Annie. She was dressed in the same way. Morgan's had made them look just like kids in an ancient Roman town. I guess this is what Morgan means, said Jack. When she said she helped us be blind in. I feel like Cinderella, said Annie. I like those clothes. Yeah, said Jack, although he felt a little as if he was wearing the dress. Annie looked out the window. It's pretty here, she says. Jack looked with her. They had landed near the grove of trees. On the one side of the grove rose the gentle-looking mountain. On the other, the town sparkles in the sunlight. I wonder where we are, said Jack. He opened the books about Roman times. He read aloud. Almost 2,000 years ago, on August 25 A.D. 79, the seaside town of Pompeii was the capital of Roman towns. Many Romans went there on their vacations. They built large houses called villas and planted groves of olive trees along the slope of a mountain called Mount Vesuvius. Annie kept looking out the window as Jack pulled out his notebook and pencil. He wrote, Vacationed in Pompeii, August 24 AD 79. Houses called villas. Jack looked out the window again. It does look like a nice place to go on vacation, he said. We must have landed in the one of the olive grove, said Annie. Yeah, and that town must be Pompeii, said Jack. He looked in the opposite direction, and that mountain must be Mount Vesuvius. Annie shivers. The name sounds scary, she says. Really? Said Jack. Not to me. He looked down at his notes. Hey, do you feel what? Do you feel that? Said Annie. What? Jack looked up. The ground shook. I heard a rumble too, said Annie. Jack frowned. I think you're just dreaming again, he said. No, I wasn't, said Annie. Something feels wrong about this place. I really think we should go home now. Are you not? Said Jack. We have to find that lost story from Morgan. Besides, I've always wanted to see the Roman town. He threw his notebook and the Roman book into his leather bag. Then he went down the rope ladder. Come on, he called when he stepped onto the ground. Annie just stared down at him. Don't be chicken, he said. He pushed his glasses into place. Come on, it'll be fun. Annie still didn't move. What's wrong with her? Jack wondered. Usually I'm the worried one. Come on, he pleaded. We can't let Morgans down. Annie let out a big sigh. Okay, but we'd better find the story fast, she said. Finally, she climbed down the rope ladder. The sun was bright and hot as they took off between the olive trees. With the Mount Vesuvius at their backs, they headed for the town of Pompeii. That's weird, said Annie. I don't hear any bird. She was right. The grove was strangely silent. Don't worry about it, said Jack. Maybe they're all at the branch. Come on, let's go over the bridge. He led the way to the small wooden bridge that crossed the narrow streams. But when they got to the streams, they found it had dried up. That's really weird, said Annie. Don't worry, said Jack. It just means there hadn't been much rain. They crossed the bridge and stepped into the busy street. It was paved with stones. People were buying things in the open shop. They lined the streets. Some looked rushed and busy. Others moved slowly. Kids walked with their parents. Group of teenagers talked and laughed. They don't seem very different from people shopping in Frog Creek, Jack thought, except for the clothes, of course. How will we ever find the ancient lost library, said Annie, glancing around. I don't know, said Jack. Just be on the lookout. They walked past a shop that has huge jars in them. When Jack looked closely, he saw that they were filled with grains, dried fruits, and olives. Mints hung from the ceiling of some of the stores. They passed the noisy turbines where people were eating and drinking. A young man played a stringed instrument. See, there's nothing to worry about, said Jack. This place isn't all that different from our time. It's not that, said Annie with a worried look. See, there's a barber shop and a shoe shop, said Jack, pointing. The boy was getting his hair cut by the barber. The girl was trying on the new pair of sandals with her mother. This is kind of like home, Annie agreed. They kept walking until they passed the Burberry Bakery filled with a freshly baked flat breads. That bread is like pizza, said Annie, smiling. Yeah, said Jack. The good smell from the bakery made him feel even more at home. Jack looked at Annie. She was still smiling, and as they walked on, soon they came to the large square filled with people, carts and horses, and more shopping stalls. Honey cakes, soft dates, peacock eggs, seller called. Farmer was selling grapes, garlic, and onions. Fishermen were selling all kinds of fish, and a few people stood on box giving speech to a small crowd. Hey, I bet this is the Forum, said Jack. He reached into his bag for his book. He flipped through it until he found the picture of the square. He read, the center of the Roman town was called the Forum. The Forum was the main place where people met to sell goods and discuss policies. I was right, said Jack. He pulled out his notebook. He wrote, Forms equals center of town. Jack, whispered Annie. Jack! She tugged on his tunic. Look! Jack glanced up. Annie nodded Annie nodded toward an old woman who was staring straight at them. She wore a black cloak. Her gray hair was tangled and wild. She seemed to be missing her teeth. The woman pointed the bony fingers at Jack and Annie. "The end is near," she said in a rapid voice. "Go home, stranger." "Yikes," said Annie. "We better get away from her," said Jack, "before people wonder who we are." He put away his notebook. Then he and Annie hurried away. The old woman cackled behind them. Chapter 3. Gladiators. Jack and Annie hid behind the first stove. They waited for a moment, then peered around the corners. "I don't see her," said Jack. "Who was she?" asked Annie. "I don't know, but she looked not to me," said Jack. What the books say about her," said Annie. "She won't be in there," said Jack. "Just look," said Annie. Jack sighed and pulled out the book again. To his surprise, he found a picture of the old woman. He read aloud. "In Roman times, there were people who can see into the futures and warned others about what they saw. Those people were called soothsayers." "See, she was nuts," said Annie. "She was giving us the warning, just like my nightmare." "Don't pay attention to that stuff," said Jack. "Soothsayers are from olden times. People from our times don't believe in them." "Well, I do," said Annie. "I'm sure something bad is about to happen." Jack sighed. "Come on, we have to keep going. We have to find the lost library. Then we will leave at once." "We'd better," said Annie. They left the fruit stand and kept walking through the forest. Soon they came to the large building. Crowd was streaming in and out of it. "Is that the library?" said Annie. "Let's look," said Jack. He looked in the Roman books. He found a picture of the buildings and read aloud. Most people in Pompeii did not have a bathtub at home, so they went daily to the public bath. Not only did people wash at the bath, they did also swim, play sports, and visit with their friends. That sounds like going to the pool," said Annie. "But it's not a library. Let's keep walking." They kept walking until soon they found a fancy building with large columns. "Is that a library?" said Annie. Jack found a picture of the building and read aloud. "The people of Pompeii believed that many gods and goddesses rule the world. This is the temple of Jupiter, their chief gods. In these temples, they paid Jupiter and offered him gifts. Today, we call the stories about Jupiter and the other god and goddess math." "My teacher read math to us," said Jack. "I remember stories about Hercules and Apollo." Yeah, my teacher read them too," said Annie. "I like stories about Venus and Medusa." "Hey, maybe the story we're looking for is the math," said Jack. "Right," said Annie. "Come on, hurry, let's keep looking." They left the worms and turned onto a wide street. Jack gasped. In the front of them was an incredible sight. Tall warriors with huge muscles were walking in the line. They wore fancy helmets to carry heavy shells. "Soldier," thought Jack. Then he saw that the warrior feet were chained together. The guard walked with them. "Gladiators," he whispered. Chained together. The guard walked with them. "Gladiators," he whispered. Chained together. The guard walked with them. Chapter 4 Scary Things. Jack pulled out his book and found a picture of the strong man. He read aloud. Gladiators were slaves or criminals who fought in the amphitheaters. They were forced to fight each other or wild animals like lions or bears. The people of Pompeii thought the gladiators' fight was great fun. That's not fun, said Annie. No wonder I think it's weird here. No kidding, said Jack. That's not like our time at all. Jack and Annie watched as the guard led the gladiators away. They went toward the building that looked like an outdoor stadium. That must be the amphitheaters, said Jack. Let's check it out. Oh, right, but it's not a library, said Annie. He and Annie started up the street toward the amphitheaters. The large crowd has gathered near the entrance. Men and women cheered as the gladiators marched inside. Jack and Annie started to follow them, but the guard held up his spears. No children allowed, he said stiffly. Run along now. Yes, run along. Run for your lives, came the raspy, hissing voice. Jack and Annie whirled around. It was the soothsayer. She was waving her bony fingers at them. Oh no, her again, said Jack. Let's get away from here. He started to take off. Wait, said Annie. I want to talk to her. Are you crazy? Said Jack. But before he could stop her, Annie ran up to the soothsayer. Jack watched from the distance as the woman talked to Annie. Jack, come here, quick, called Annie. Oh, brother, said Jack. He sighed and went over to Annie and the soothsayers. Tell him, said Annie. The woman fixed her gaze on Jack. Oh, the streams of Pompeii has dried up, she said. Remember the stream near the olive grove, said Annie. So what, said Jack. Maybe they just need rain. No, said Annie. There are more scary things. Tell him. All the birds have flown away, the soothsayer says. Jack just stared at her. She said, that's all. The rats laughed too, said Annie, and the cows are making strange noises. But wow, why, said Jack. The sea is boiling hot, said the old woman says. The ground shakes and speaks. See, I told you, Annie said to Jack. But why are there these things happening? Jack said to the soothsayer. Because the end is near, she whispered harshly. We have to leave now, said Annie. But what about the library, said Jack. What library? the soothsayer asked. Shows her the story titled Jack, said Annie. Jack took a piece of paper from his bag. He showed the written writing to the soothsayers. The book with these titles in the library in this town, he said. So, the old woman says. So, we have to save it, said Annie. She pulled out her secret library card. The soothsayer stared for a moment at the card and the shimmering letters on it. Then she smiled warmly at Jack and Annie. Yes, I understand now, she said. The only library I know is in the house of Brutus. She pointed to the large villa at the end of the street. Look there, quickly. Will Brutus mind? Said Jack. Brutus and his household are all in rooms. The soothsayer says. That's merely in their vacation villa. But we can't just go in and take some things of theirs, said Jack. The old woman shook her head sadly. After today, there will be nothing left in Pompeii, she says. Nothing at all. Jack felt the child go down his veins. Go and get what you came here for, said the soothsayer. Then leave at once. Thanks, said Jack. He grabbed Annie's hands. Come on, thanks, Annie called to the old woman. You should leave too, she added. Then Annie and Jack started running to Vacation Villa. They ran as fast as they could. Chapter 5. Books. Jack and Annie ran up the front entrance of the villa. Jack pushed the door open. "Go in, hurry," said Annie. They slipped into the main hall. "Hello," Annie called. There was no answer. The place seemed empty. The main hall has a large opening in the ceilings. Below it was a small stone pool filled with water. Jack looked at it carefully. "Oh, I bet rain comes through the hole," said Jack. "Then it landed in that pool so they can use it for their waters." He started to take out his notebook to make the notes. "There's no time, Jack," said Annie. "We have to look in all the rooms for books." Okay, calm down," said Jack. He put away his notebook and followed Annie. Books, she says, peering into the room of the hole. She moved to the next room. Books. Then she moved on to the next. Jack trailed behind her. Even though she had already checked the rooms, he took a quick peek in each of them. He wanted to see what the house in Roman's time looked like. He wrote notes later. The first 2 rooms has wooden bed. The walls has pictures painted on them. The floors were covered with the tiny pieces of colored stone. The 3rd room has the low tables with the silver dishes on it. 3 sleeping cots were placed around the table. The cots were covered with pillows. "This must be the dining room," said Jack. "People from Roman's time lay down on the couch while they ate." "Did you know what?" He looked around for Annie. Where was she? "Jack, come here," Annie called. Jack followed her voice. She was in the garden of the dining room. It has a stone pedestal, palm trees, and grapes vines. In the middle was the pond and the mermaid fountain. Goldfish swam in the water. "Look, there's another room," said Annie. She moved to the door of the rooms of the garden. She opened the door and peeked inside. Jack looked with her. Along the walls of rooms were long sleeves with rolls of papers on them. "Rats," said Annie. "No book." She closed the door. "No books in this whole villa. Let's get out of here." "Just a minute," said Jack. "I have an idea." He pulled out his books on Roman times. He found the section called Writing. He read, "Roman used pen made of small reeds. Their ink came partly from the black ink of octopuses. They wrote their books on the scrolls of papyrus paper." Said Jack. That's the library of scrolls. I bet our ancient lost story is in there." Chapter 6. The end is here. Jack opened the door to the rooms of scrolls. He and Annie rushed into the rooms over to the slabs. Jack pulled out the piece of paper with the Latin title on it. "Fortissimus in Mondo." "Okay," he says, "we have to find the scrolls with these titles." They began frantically unrolling scrolls one by one. They were all handwritten in Latin. "Here it is," said Annie. She held up the scroll. The word at the top matched the ones on their paper. "Yay," said Jack. "I wish I could read Latin so we could find out what the story is." "Don't think about it now," said Annie. "Let's go." Annie handed the scroll to Jack, then started out of the room. "Come on," she says. "Bring it." "I just want to check to see what the story is about," said Jack. He put the scrolls in the letter bags. Then he flew through the books on Romans time, looking for the picture of ancient scrolls. In the middle of the books, he found the picture of volcano antipling over the town. Under the picture was written, "For 800 years, Mount Versus was the peaceful mountain, rising above the town of Pompeii. Then at noon on just 25 AD 79, it tipped into the deadly volcano." "Oh no," whispered Jack. "Just 25 AD 79. That's today. Oh man, what time is it?" He looked around wildly. "Annie!" She was gone again. "Annie!" Jack grabbed the letter back. Then, clenching the books, he tore out the scroll room. "Annie!" he cried. "What?" Annie appeared at the door to the dining room. "Volcano!" shuddered Jack. "What?" said Annie. It's coming a volcano at noon," said Jack. Annie gasped. "What time is it?" cried Jack. "So that's what the soothsayer meant," Annie says. "The end is near." "What time is it?" Jack asked again. He looked around the garden. He saw something near the mermaid's fountain. "The sundial," he says. "That's how the Romans told time." Jack and Danny raced to the sundial. "What time does it say?" said Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. His hand shook as he turned the page of the book. He stopped on the picture of sundials. It showed examples of different times. Jack looked back and forth from the page to the real sundials in the garden. "Here," he says. He has found the one that marched. Jack read the writing under the picture. "The shadows on the sundials can hardly be seen at noon." "Oh man," he whispered. He looked at Annie. "The end is near. The end is here." Just then he heard a terrible blast. It was the loudest sound he had ever heard. Chapter 7. The sky is falling. The next thing Jack knew, he was lying on the stone panto. The panto stones were trembling. The rumbling sounds came from the ground. Jack raised his head. Annie was on the ground too. "You okay?" said Annie. Jack nodded. Everything was shaking and crashing down around them. Pots, planes, and mermaid fountain. Water from the goldfish pond slashed onto the panto and Jack and Danny. They both jumped out just as roof tiles began falling into the garden. "We better get inside," said Jack. He grabbed his ladder bag. Then he and Danny rumbled to the scroll library. Then crackly the stones fall as Jack and Danny ran to the window to look out. Glow rocks were bursting through the sky above Mount Versus. The whole top of mountain has blown up. "What's happening?" said Annie. "I'll check," said Jack. He pulled out the Roman book. He read aloud from the section of the volcano. "When the volcano erupts, hot melted rocks called magma is pushed to the surface of the earth. Once it gets outside the volcano, it's called lava." "Lava! Like the burning mud," said Jack. "It's covered everything," called Annie. Jack kept reading. There was no running lava from Mount Vesuvius. The magma from the volcano cooled so fast that it froze to the small grayish white rocks called pumice. The pumice rock is very light and has stone hole like sponge. "That sounds too bad," said Annie. "Wait, there's more," said Jack. He read on. The great crowd of pumice as the burning rocks stood miles into the air. When it rained down on Pompeii, it completely burned the house. "Oh man," said Jack. is a matter of disaster. It's getting dark, said Annie. Jack looked out again. A thin, thick black cloud was spreading over the earth like an umbrella. The sun vanished as the sky turned smoothly gray. That must be a cloud of pumice and ash, said Jack. Just then the ground trembled again. Cloud of plaster from the ceilings fell on the squirrels. We have to get out of here, said Annie. They ran from the school library to the garden. Ash the pumice began falling. We have to cover our heads, said Jack. They hurried from the garden to the dining rooms. Look, pillows, said Annie. Let's put them on our heads. They hurried to the couch beside the tables and each grabbed a pillow. Tie it around your head with your belt, said Jack. They both pulled off the belt from around their tunics. Then they tied on the pillow like giant hats. The clunk of ceilings rushed around them. Let's get out of here, said Jack. They stepped over pieces of fallen roof tiles and ran to the main hold. They pushed open the front door. The blast of heat and dust nearly turned over, and when they stepped outside, pumice rained down on their pillow hats. Run, cried Annie. They ran from the vacation villa into the dark, burning streets. Chapter 8. Nightmares at Noon. In the distance, fire burst from Mount Vesuvius. Burning rocks and freshly ash fell from the sky. The hot, dusty air smelled like rotten eggs as Jack and Danny rushed down the streets. In uniforms, everyone, shoppers, soldiers, gladiators, foot sailors were running in every direction. Cells had cosplays. Carts were sledding. Jack froze. He didn't know where to go. That's the way, shouted Annie. Jack followed her as they ran past the Temple of Gladiators. Its mighty columns had fallen, and its walls were crumbling. They ran past the pudding bath just as the roof caved in. Which way now? Shouted Annie. The treehouse is in the olive grove, Jack said as they kept running. The olive groves and the bridge are near the street with all the open shops, said Annie. Remember the bridge? Jack looked up at the emptying mountain. The red-hot cloud below over it. Fires burned on its slope. Head in the direction of Mount Vesuvius, he said. It was behind us as we came to the Pompeii. Right, called Annie. So, while the others ran away from the Mount Vesuvius, Jack and Danny ran toward it. And the streets were with the open shop, baskets and broken jars rolled over the cracked stones. Jack and Danny ran past the bakery and shoe shop. They ran past the butcher shop and barber shop. All the shops were empty. Their owner has fled. The closer they got to the volcano, the more the ground tumbled, the darker and dustier it got. This is just like my nightmare, cried Annie. Jack looked on the rotten flames. His eyes waters. Look, the olive grove, shouted Annie. The treehouse is just over there. Come on. Jack could hardly see, but he followed Annie. They left the streets and ran to the dried-up streams near the olive grove. Where's the bridge? Cried Annie. They looked around wildly. The bridge has vanished. Chapter 9. Save us. The bridge must have caved in, cried Annie. They stared at the dried-up streams. Pumice and has pulled up the huge drift like snows. "We have to get through the stuff to get across," said Jack. He and Annie slid down the bank onto the piled-up pumice. As they started to move across, more and more falls. Jack tried to move through the millions of warm, reddish white petals, but he was trapped. "I'm stuck!" cried Annie. "Me too," said Jack. "Remember what Morgan said," Annie. At the moment, Jack couldn't remember anything. He was too tired and gaze. "In your darkest hours, only the ancient story can save you," cried Annie. "Where's your bag?" Jack lifted his bag into the air, above the sea pumice. Annie grabbed it and pulled out the ancient scrolls. She held up to the dark sky. "Save a story!" she shouted. Jack felt himself sink deeper and deeper into the pumice. Suddenly he heard the deep voices. "Rise, son!" Then someone lifted Jack up into the air. The great flash of fires lit the dusty darkness. In the red light, Jack saw the biggest, strongest man he has ever seen in his life. The man looked like a gladiators, but even bigger than the ones they looked had seen earlier. He held Jack with one hand and Annie with the others. He placed them both on the other bank of the streams. "Run!" the giant gladiator booms, "before it's too late." Jack and Annie didn't stop to ask any questions. Together they charged through the olive grove. They jumped over fallen branches. They leaped over great cracks in the earth. Finally, they came to the trees with the magic treehouse. They grabbed a rope ladder and scrambled up to the treehouse. "We're the Pennsylvania book!" Jack shouted. He was too blinded by ash and dust to find books that always took them home. "I got it!" cried Annie. "I wish we could go there!" Jack felt the treehouse start to spin. It spun faster and faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely, wonderfully, peacefully still. Chapter 10. The simple explanations. Jack didn't move. He had never been so tired in all his life. "Press," said Annie. Jack gulped the cool, clean air. He opened his eyes. He couldn't see a thing. "Take off your glasses," said Annie. "They're filthy." Jack took off his glasses. The first thing he saw was his backpack. The white tunic and lace-up sandals were gone. There were their pillow hats and the leather bags. Jack let out a long, deep breath. As he cleaned his glasses on his shirt, the voice came from behind him. "I'm very glad to see you safe and sound." Morgan Le Fay stood in the corner of the treehouse. She looked as lovely and mysterious as ever. "Happy to be home?" she asked. Jack nodded. The sound of the erupting volcano still echoed in his ears. It was pretty scary," he said in a hoarse voice. "I know, but you're truly brave," said Morgan. "You witnessed the famous event in history. Norway scientists studied the ruin of Pompeii to find more about Roman times." "I feel bad for all those people," said Annie. "Yes," said Morgan, "but most of the people of Pompeii did escape. The city wasn't completely burned by ash until the next day." "We're almost trapped," said Annie, "but we asked the ancient story to save us. The huge gladiators help us." Jack reached into his pack. He breathed a sigh of relief. The scroll was still there. He took it out. It was covered with dust and ash. "Here's the story," said Jack. He handed it to Morgan. "I am deeply grateful," she said softly. "You risked everything to be back this to me. I can never thank you enough." "Don't worry about it," said Jack. He didn't want Morgan to know how scared he has been. "Yeah, no problem," said Annie. Morgan smiled. "You're our amazing master librarian," she says. "Do you think you're up to rescuing another ancient story?" "Yes," said Annie. "Now," said Jack. Actually, he was a little tired now. Morgan laughed. "No, take a nice vacation. Come back 2 weeks from today. Then you will take a trip to ancient China," she says. "Ancient China? Wow," said Annie. "Oh man," said Jack. "Go home now and rest," said Morgan. She handed Jack his pack. "Thanks," he says. "Bye." "Bye," said Annie. Morgan gave them a little wave. Then Annie and Jack left the treehouse and headed down the rope ladder. When they reached the ground, Jack looked up. "Morgan," he called, "what is that story about the one we just rescued?" "It's called The Strongest Man in the World," said Morgan. "It's the last tale about Hercules." "Hercules?" said Jack. "Yes, he's the one of the heroes of the Greeks and the Romans," said Morgan. "He was a son of champions." Oh, wow, now I get it," said Annie. "I'm taking it back to the Camelot Library," said Morgan. "Everyone will be so excited to read it. Thanks to you." She waved to them. "Goodbye for now." As she waved, the wind rolled. The treehouse began to spin. In the brawl of shadow, the light, Morgan's, and the magic treehouse was gone. Jack and Annie started walking through the woods. Get it, said Annie. "Get what?" said Jack. We were saved by Hercules," said Annie. "We asked the story to save us, and Hercules appeared." "That's not possible," said Jack. "It was just some gladiator guy. The story of Hercules is a myth. That means he'd never really live." They left the woods and hurried up the street. "I know it's math," said Annie, "but I have a simple explanation." "What?" said Jack. Hercules is the myth to people in this time," said Annie. "But the Roman time, a lot of people believe he was real. So, since we were in Roman's times, he was real to us." "I don't know," said Jack. "Did you ever hear the saying?" said Annie. "When the Romans do as the Romans do." Jack laughed. "Yeah." He looked up at the sky. "Thanks, Hercule," he said softly. "Whatever you are." "Jack, Annie," their dad called from their front porch. "Time to go." Oh, brother, I forgot," said Jack. "Yeah, I hope nothing exciting happens on our vacation," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "I hope it's really, really boring." "Hurry," their dad said. "Coming," they called. Then they took off running for home and their restful vacation.